Welcome to my channel. $3,600. That is my car repair bill. The poles will be greased up and slid on down. All right, at the strip club near you. Just kidding. Let me do it again. Welcome to my channel, Loc'D, and this is your girl Bree. And we are going to talk about some of my recent reads. It could be books that we already talked about before. I'm not sure, but let's go look on these shelves and figure something out. Okay. Listen, the camera might be giving ghosts. Not to be confused with Gasper. The hell is Gasper? Casper. But you know, I'm hoping that you're able to see something. So let's turn this thing around. She's beauty. She's a grace. She's Miss United States. You guys are looking at Dorothy. Yes, I call her Young Jean on the low. This plant is from cuttings from my grandmother's plant, and her name is Dorothy. I know that's right. You better put respect on Dorothy's name. Okay, so let's move Dorothy just temporarily. Let's move Dorothy temporarily. Okay, this shelf is books that are my fave, and I'm just gonna talk about I'm gonna get you here. I've talked about these on separate vlogs, but I just want to talk about some recent faves. Okay, hold up. And did I read anything over here? No, this is my to be read pile. Let me see if I have another book somewhere else. Oh, I can actually talk about. I'll talk about this one. So then, this is giving us, this is giving us 5. So let's talk about them. While I get these 5, y'all need to go to Hilary Duff's, you know, what they call it, her, her YouTube. It took me too damn long to get there. But her YouTube, to check out her new song called Mature. Lock in, fellas. Lock in, fellas. Lock in. You know? Somebody in the comments said we need to be, you know, supporting her because we can't let her flop Iana. And I'm here for that. But anyway, am I going to give you deep, in-depth reviews of these? No. But you will get the vibe. So The Last Magician, as you saw, there were some tabs. I don't want to be judged. But The Last Magician follows a story of a young girl. Let's get her name. It follows a story of this girl named Esther. The beginning of this book, specifically in the series, was so action-packed. I was like, God damn, motherfuckers die in chapter 1. Okay? So this book follows the story of Esther. I don't want to. Why do I want to call her something else? Esther is a young girl who has been told by this guy that has been guiding her magically, and she's been doing some unsavory things with him. But she was guided by him to go back into time to procure something that he has, so that something terrible won't happen. I know that's a weird description, but what I like about this book, although it is a tome. So if you're thinking about getting into this book, you know, it is very long. It's like close to 500 pages. Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yeah, it is exactly 500 pages. What I loved about this book the most was the magic system. I love hearing about the different people who have different types of magic. I loved that a white woman wrote a book that has characters who are very diverse, not only in gender, but also in nationality. I also really loved how the story was told. I feel like this book it felt fast paced to me, even though that it's 500 pages. And I don't know how Lisa Maxwell did that, but she did it. I also want to insert a shout out to Monet Miss for getting me onto this series. And I haven't read the last book, but I hope that I'll read the last book within the next few months, I'm hoping. I want to read it in December, but every time I say I want to read something in December, it never happens. So I just want to read it soon. The thing that I found also very interesting is there's a character in here who is very much giving like femme fatale vibes, and she is cold as ice with a motherfucking knife. Do you hear me? She slice. A man look at her wrong, slice. A man even think wrong, slice. She is quick. She is quick and she is not to be messed with. I also love the banter between the last magician and Esther. I also love that she, in this book, I think is becoming more independent and learning who she is, and that people who she's trusted the most may have a little bit more depth or might be causing her problems in a way that she doesn't yet know, and is definitely revealed in book 2. Even when I chose this book, which y'all saw, I was like, how do I talk about this book and not spoil book 2? But this book pretty much is, you got to find a magician, you got to convince him to get you this book, and you got to bring this book back in time. And I think it's also really dope that this series, and specifically this book, has a lot to do with time manipulation. That is one of the things that Esther can do. And if you know me, and you've probably seen it in Blackoween, of how we have laissez-faire, which focus on time manipulation, a fantasy that's giving me time manipulation that's not so heavy in romance, you got me. You got me. So I really appreciated that part in the book. Now, is there a little bit of a kindling of a Salt Bay action of romance? Yes, but it is not the focus in this book, and that is why I really enjoyed it. This is also a recent fave. This is called This Cursed House by Dale Sandine. This is a Black author, and this is her debut novel. And it follows the story of this young girl. It's another young girl. Her name is Gemma Baker. It's set in 1962 in Louisiana. And it's about this Black woman who abandons her life in the 60s in Chicago for a position with a mysterious family in New Orleans, only to discover the dark truth. They're under a curse and they think that she can break it. And that is really what you're reading the whole way. I thought that was a beautiful summation. Now, are there things in there where it's like some root magic adjacent? There are some terms to how this family thinks that she can break the curse. There's also, I think, a beautiful I think there's a beautiful discussion to be had about this book when we talk about colorism in the Black community, who benefits from it, who is impacted by it, and who perpetuates it, and why it's being perpetuated. And it starts to really dive into this notion of octoroon and what that looks like. And I think this book is a great companion to... Do I own that book? I don't know if I own it, but if you've ever read Britt Bennett book, The Vanishing Half, you would see the similarities, especially when we're talking about colorism and how it's impacted. And in The Vanishing Half, it's about two sisters who are experiencing their Blackness differently, and they're both white presenting, and they both choose two different paths, including the people that they married. And the sister who is choosing to live her life and exist as a white woman would very much relate to the fucked up, because that family is trash. The whole time you're reading, you're like, why hasn't somebody blown up the house? The house just standing all willy-nilly and shit. The next book I'm going to talk about is King of Ashes. This is currently my favorite book of S.A. Cosby. It follows the story, I would say, it follows the main character who were in his perspective the most. I think his name is Roman. And then he has a brother hold on, let me get his brother named Dante, and then he has a sister named Nevaeh. Now, even though we get all of their perspectives, it's really Roman is the character we're focusing on. So Roman is a guy who has a propensity for helping people make money. And he has been very successful in this and has moved away from his house or his home to further this career. And then one day he gets a call from his family, I think from his brother Dante, being like, hey bro, you got to come back home. Dad is in terrible condition. He gets home and he is very much a problem solver. The author, S.A. Cosby, wrote this really well because Roman, as being the older sibling, is definitely like, I'm going to problem solve. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to, get stuff together. Nevaeh is giving very much middle child energy. And when I say middle child energy of like thinking like no one cares for you, and she's a woman, she's a black woman, right? And that's a whole nother level. She's like thinking like, my older brother's lying to me. My little brother's lying to me. Nobody's being honest, so I have to take it all, and I have to do it all, and I have to be the fixer. And I think a lot of times people forget about the middle child thinking that they have to be the fixer because the younger one or the older ones is just too caught up in their own stuff, and they're thinking they're trying to protect you, and you're like, for what? Like, we are all adults. We should all be able to work through this. And that's not happening because her brothers are lying to her throughout the whole book until something like very terrible happens, but it's like there's no honesty there. But it's also a level of her being a black woman, and if you are a black woman and you engage with other black men, you understand what I say about what I mean when I say that. And then you have Dante, who I hope that I'm right, is the youngest child who just is doing a bunch of things and not really caring about the consequences. He's just living really just free and doing whatever he wants. But also there's a layer of all of them experiencing a collective trauma, and it's being expressed in different ways. And each of the siblings do not like how the other siblings are expressing their grief or expressing the shared collective trauma that they went through. So instead of choosing healing, which is very hard for a lot of marginalized and BIPOC communities to choose to heal, you become more destructive. So it's kind of like you're on two different spectrums of it, because it's like Dante could lean into support for his brother and his sister, but he don't feel like they understand him. And so you look externally, and a lot of times when you're looking externally, it can lead you to people who want to prey on that, and then lead you to engage in activities that are very life-threatening. So the bulk of the book is the older brother Roman and the younger sister trying to mitigate the destruction that Dante has caused on the family at whole, while also trying to uncover what the fuck happened to their mama. Where's she at? What's she doing? Huh? So yeah, I mean, it's not what she's doing. She's very dead, but it's like, what happened, right? Then we have The Last Dragon on Mars. This is a copy I got from, what is it called? Half Price Books, I think. And did they charge me $16.14? Yes. That felt anti-black, but I kept going. This author is a white man, I'm assuming. This is Scott Renton, and I cannot wait. I think the second book is coming out in this time or coming out soon. I can't remember, but I love this book. I love to read books about dragons, so this was very good. The only thing that I was like, this book is a middle grade book, so I read a lot of middle grade, and it's actually my favorite genre. However, I also know that middle grade I'm not the intended audience for middle grade. And sometimes when you're reading a book, especially like for me, where things are happening fast and the stakes are high, I'd be like, you guys, we got to make smart choices. We got to get the fuck out of here. But in middle grade, you don't get that because that frontal lobe ain't developed. You get dumb decision after dumb decision after dumb decision, right? But it's a part of it because what? Middle grade. I am what? 35. I am not what? The target audience. But that doesn't matter because this is still a great book. Just because I was irritated with choices that children was making as an adult, I still fuck with this book heavy. Yes. So this book is about a boy who is living on Mars, unexpectedly becomes a dragon rider. In this first book in the sci-fi and fantasy mashup, the Dragon Ship series, sure to delight fans of Skandar and Ergon. Do I know Skandar? Never seen it. Do I know Ergon? Maybe. Saw it in a bookstore. I don't know nothing about that. So none of that made sense, but I did want to read that to you. So in this book, The Last Dragon, you guys, you don't even understand. This dude is on Mars, right? It's just like, imagine a young boy who has the will to live, super scrappy, been through a bunch of things, and has really figured out a way to survive. And if you think too deep, you're like, damn, that's traumatic as hell. But while you're reading the book, you're realizing, like, he has layers to himself, and even though he might have this external, like, exterior, like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be this, or you're not gonna mess with me, you also see a level of kindness, a level of compassion that he has for himself and others. And he also don't have the greatest, like, self-assurance or the greatest, I would say, like, self-esteem, and then to be chosen by a dragon as the dragoon and getting that self-confidence from a goddamn dragon. Yeah, and making it known that you are this dragoon, and that you are the rider, and that people will respect you even if they think that you just, like, stumbled into this dragon's cave. Even though that's what you did, the dragon is the one who decides who will and will not ride him. So for the dragon to choose this such unlikely person, and then you're watching, or not watching, you're reading the bond between the dragon and also the young boy, and also the bond between him and something that's in him that you're really not sure what it is. He focused on that. And to find out what the dragon really is and why the young boy was chosen, and the different things he had to do to be tested, to know that he had the capability to lead and to be supported by this dragon. You guys, it was too damn good. Now, all of you R.F. Kuang haters on this book, leave this video now. I'm talking immediately. I'm talking iota. This book owed me nothing. I want to frame this book. I want to reread this book. And I know that I, like, highlighted some stuff down, but sometimes my dyslexia really pisses me off, because I'd be like, man, I could have been an annotated bad bitch out here, but you got me being an auditorial bad bitch. It follows the story of this young boy, Robin Swift, in 1828. Okay, so think historical fiction. Now, as I'm sitting right now in a linguistics program, it further enriches my enjoyment for this context. Now, what I'm learning right now is, like, phonology, the International Phonetical Alphabet. I'm learning syntax. I'm studying X-bar theory. I'm learning intro to linguistics and the many different subfields and what people are doing and how people are interpreting things. I'm learning about sentence ambiguity, all these different things that are very technical. And this book is more like, let me tell you of the history of learning languages, specifically as it has to do with translated text. And I think that a lot of times we forget about the British Empire, and we forget about the woes of colonialization and how it has not only fucked up our language, has fucked up our land, has fucked up how we create to each other, our ways of knowing, our ceremonies. It has also fucked up our language. And that translations, especially when we think about like older texts and the languages or the countries that translated it to the, you know, different languages, and how heavily politicized those decisions were, and how a lot of times when things were translated, it was translated through the idea of covering something up or political gain. And a lot of things has been lost in history because it has not been translated correctly. And that is what this book was. This book was letting us know about the dark side of when translation goes wrong, right? We have Robin, we have him being the son of this guy who won't even recognize him, and this guy is a very prestigious professor at Oxford, and he goes to Oxford because his dad came to where he lived in this place in China, I believe, and he took him from his mom as his mom was dying of cholera, I believe. She was dying of something. And like everyone at the time was dying of that. And then you're seeing how this white savior comes and take him. They brought him to Britain to raise him and to get him to understand the importance of learning languages, but through some harsh means sometimes. And then once he get accepted, he is there based on like these arbitrary rules and signifiers. And then he meets other brown people and this white girl who is also in his program, and they're all trying to make sure that they are like the best students and studying and doing what they have to do. But as their friendship grows, you learn that, you know, it's an example of, I won't say that like, how am I trying to describe this? I think this book is a cautionary tale. I think this book is a historical and in many ways a modern example of trusting folks who are perpetuating whiteness and white supremacy can get you fucked up. And even though the people who typically do this are white, not everybody is, right? I have held up white supremacy, right? And you have to really unlearn that shit. You have to really work hard, fast, and understand that white supremacy is really a daughter of colonialization, and then understanding all the daughters of colonialization and how they work in tandem, right? Including capitalism. So even in reading this book, you learn about, I think there's these silver bars in this book, and they talk about like how they're so precious and so expensive and like not something that everybody has access, right? Gatekeeping, right? Gatekeeping, right? Is also a daughter of colonialization. So while you're reading this book, it's kind of like, in my mind, and I don't know if other people have it in their mind, it's kind of like you know colonialization is the father, or the asshole, maybe let's say that, the asshole, and then you see how it's everything else is being like strung from that, and how not only is that infiltrating his friendships, it's infiltrating the things that he's asked to do, especially when it has to do with translating and helping folks make deals that is favorable to the British Empire. And it's also just interesting seeing how insidious white folks were, and how those insidious natures have somehow stood the test of time, and you can see it a lot in current day. So this book, I felt like, should be a required reading. It really had so many things. There's so many avenues of this book that I felt like you can unpack. You can unpack friendships. You can unpack friendship hurts. You can unpack striking. You can unpack the benefits of that. You can unpack when and when it's not appropriate. You can unpack your own journey and how you may have come to the realization like, oh damn, I'm really out here perpetuating systems of white supremacy. And I remember clearly, just even for myself, going to I think it was like a TED talk or something like that at my school when I was in undergrad. And I remember the person, it was a woman of color, who said, you know, white supremacy is not always perpetuated within white communities. Anybody in this room, and I would offer everybody in this room at some point of their lives, have perpetuated white supremacy. And I was like, me? Doing the agenda of the white man? Yeah, it was you, Bree. It was you. It was you. And I still have to unpack those things. You have to be very conscious of it. And I think reading and critical thinking is such a good tool to help you figure out how to unpack as much as you can and be the less harming or harmful person that you can be. And that's why I think books like Babel are so important. They say it's fiction, and which it is, but there is a lot of non-fiction things that can be drawn from this, right? Even in this one, it's like you think because I'm poor and I don't got nothing and I'm robbing Paul to pay Peter that I am now worthy of leadership. Do I have to come from some type of echelon or status to show you that I am that boy? And it's also like, I may have started from the bottom, but now I'm at the top. And now I'm trying to figure things out. Who am I outside of my family? Right? Is running away to go and do this career, is that the best thing for me? Am I understanding that this career is also perpetuating white supremacy and capitalism above everything? And capitalism ruins everything? Right? And then we have to think about, okay, so the white man is the one who's created this concept that we call race, right? Which is a social construct. So if it's the white man who created this, why are we using the white man's language to tell each other if we're black or not? Why are we using the white man's language to infer superiority other black people, but I'm still going to say I'm a black person, but I'm not like those black persons, right? And then it's like, all right, I may have lost everybody I've loaned, right? Because underneath colonization, we all have experienced loss. So it's like, I may have lost something, but now I'm a part of a group that don't even get a chance to fully actualize because of who we were, because how we were born with magic, people hunted us down. And I think that indigenous people globally know what that feels like, right? So it's like, I am going back in time to reclaim something so that me and my people can exist out loud. But there's all of these systems that is trying to retrieve this item to make sure that that is not fully actualized. And we see that globally of people not, indigenous people are like land back. And colonizing systems are like, what? What you mean land back? There's water protectors out there. There's people who protecting pipelines and people are like, no, I need my gas. And it's like, so water isn't sacred? That's how you feel? So, there's just all of these books, even though they're very fictional, right, have real life implications. And I think that's why they have made the list of my recent favorite reads. And was that loquacious as fuck? You know it was. Anyway, I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye.